Don Rickles was a man who could make anyone laugh, from Hollywood stars to presidents sitting in the White House. His quick wit and sharp insults made him one of the most unique comedians in history. Among all the people he worked with, none left a bigger mark on him than Johnny Carson. Their moments together on The Tonight Show became legendary. Millions of people tuned in to watch their banter. Carson's calm hosting style and Rickles' fiery humor blended perfectly. To the public, they seemed like the best of friends, two men who shared laughter, trust, and deep friendship. But behind the cameras, things were far more complicated. Don Rickles respected Carson deeply, calling him the king of late night, but he also carried pain and disappointment from their relationship. What the world saw as brotherhood was, in truth, something far colder. Before his death, Rickles revealed that what looked like friendship was only an illusion created by television. His confession shocked many of his fans who believed that he and Carson shared a genuine bond. To understand what really happened between these two comedy legends, we have to go back and look at Rickles' journey, how he rose to fame, what made his humor so special, and what he truly felt about the man who gave him so much attention on screen, but very little connection off it. Don Rickles was born on May 8, 1926, in Queens, New York, to Jewish immigrant parents. He grew up in a tight-knit family that valued laughter and storytelling, especially within the Yiddish community. Those early years shaped his humor, quick, clever, and full of heart. Like many young men of his generation, his youth was interrupted by World War II. At 18, he joined the U.S. Navy, serving on a ship in the Pacific. Though he didn't see combat, the discipline and loneliness of military life gave him time to think about what he really wanted. When he returned home, he decided to become an actor. He joined the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York and dreamed of being in serious films or television dramas. But Hollywood wasn't interested in his kind of face or style. For years, he struggled to find acting jobs. Frustration grew, and rejection became part of his daily life. Then, out of desperation, he tried stand-up comedy. Not because he planned to, but because it gave him a stage. At first, his jokes were ordinary and safe, but one night when a group of hecklers interrupted him, everything changed. Instead of ignoring them, Rickles fired back with quick, funny insults, and the crowd exploded with laughter. That night, he discovered his gift. Not just to tell jokes, but to make fun of people in a way that made them love him for it. Once Don Rickles found his unique voice, there was no turning back. He built a style that no one else dared to try: fast insults, fearless roasting, and humor that hit everyone, no matter how powerful they were. But he did it with warmth. People didn't feel attacked. They felt included. The real turning point came when Frank Sinatra attended one of his shows in Miami Beach. Sinatra was the most feared and respected man in show business, someone no comedian would ever dare to mock. Yet Rickles looked straight at him and said, "Make yourself at home, Frank. Hit somebody." The audience went silent, unsure if Sinatra would explode. But instead Sinatra laughed. And that laugh changed Rickles' life. Sinatra became his supporter, telling everyone about the brave young comic who made fun of him to his face. Soon, Rickles was performing in Las Vegas, headlining shows and earning the nickname Mr. Warmth, a funny title for a man whose jokes could cut like a knife. His act became legendary, and he was invited to television shows, movies, and celebrity roasts. People loved that he was honest, brave, and sharp, but always with a smile. Behind that success, though, was a man who still longed for acceptance, especially from the television world that would soon define his career, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. When Don Rickles first appeared on The Tonight Show, it was magic. Carson was calm, dry, and collected, the perfect straight man to Rickles' wild, fast-talking energy. Their chemistry was instant. Rickles would interrupt Carson's interviews, throw jokes at him, tease the guests, and even make fun of Carson himself. Instead of getting angry, Carson would laugh and play along, letting Rickles steal the spotlight. Millions of viewers loved these moments. They believed that what they saw was two close friends just having fun. In many ways, their timing and connection helped define late-night comedy for decades. Yet behind the laughter, Rickles always felt uncertain. Carson was known for being private and emotionally distant. While Rickles joked about friendship, Carson kept his real feelings locked away. Rickles often said he adored Carson, but he never truly knew where he stood with him. They were partners in comedy, yes, but real friends? That was another story. Even as Rickles appeared on the show for years, becoming one of its most beloved guests, he later admitted that Carson never invited him into his private world. Their laughter on stage was real, but it ended when the cameras stopped rolling. What Rickles thought was a brotherly bond turned out to be just show business. To understand Don Rickles, you have to see beyond the insults. He was a performer who turned rejection into laughter, but at home, he was gentle, loyal, and deeply emotional. In 1965, he married Barbara Sklar, a woman far removed from Hollywood glamour. She became his anchor, the steady, calm presence he needed. They had 2 children, Mindy and Larry. Don often joked that his wife was the only person who could tolerate him, but behind the jokes, he meant every word. Family was his greatest joy. He adored his kids, even though he found it hard to express deep emotions openly. His daughter Mindy once said he was loving but guarded, funny to the world but quiet at home. His son Larry followed him into show business, becoming a writer and producer. In 2007, Larry worked on Mr. Warmth, the Don Rickles Project, a documentary about his father's life, which went on to win an Emmy Award. It was one of Don's proudest moments. But in 2011, tragedy struck when Larry died unexpectedly at 41. The loss broke Rickles in ways he could never fully express. His friends noticed a new sadness in his humor. The laughs were still there, but they came from a man who carried deep pain. Even as he made the world laugh, his heart remained heavy. For decades, audiences believed that Don Rickles and Johnny Carson were inseparable, brothers in comedy. But in his later years, Rickles opened up about the truth. He said he admired Carson deeply and was grateful for everything The Tonight Show gave him, but the friendship was not real. Carson, while kind on camera, kept Rickles at a distance off stage. The two rarely spoke outside of work. When Carson retired from The Tonight Show in 1992, Rickles expected to continue their bond or maybe get support for his own late-night project. But nothing came. Carson simply walked away from television and from Rickles' life. It hurt him deeply. He felt abandoned and forgotten by someone he had thought of as a friend. In interviews before his death, Rickles hinted that he had never fully healed from that disappointment. What the audience saw as a perfect partnership was only a performance. Carson and Rickles were not close. They were colleagues. Their laughter together was real in the moment, but it didn't go beyond the show. For Rickles, this truth was painful but freeing. By admitting it, he showed that even the funniest people can carry invisible wounds. It was one of the most honest confessions of his life. Even as time and fame changed everything, Don Rickles kept performing. The world of comedy evolved. Younger stars like Eddie Murphy, Jerry Seinfeld, and Robin Williams brought new styles. Some critics called Rickles' act old-fashioned, but he never let that stop him. Then came a surprise comeback. In 1995, Pixar cast him as the voice of Mr. Potato Head in Toy Story. The sarcastic, quick-talking character fit him perfectly. Suddenly, children who had never seen his stand-up shows recognized his voice, and a new generation fell in love with him. Rickles continued voicing the character in every Toy Story film until his death. Offstage, his closest friend was comedian Bob Newhart. The two shared a real friendship that lasted for decades, traveling together with their wives, supporting each other through good times and bad. Newhart once said that Don wasn't just funny. He was loyal, kind, and deeply human. As Rickles grew older, his health declined. He suffered from diabetes and circulation problems, and rumors spread about serious illnesses. Yet he refused to stop performing. Even in his 80s, he went on stage, sometimes sitting through his shows, but still making audiences roar with laughter. His humor, his willpower, and his love for laughter never faded. Don Rickles passed away on April 6, 2017, at the age of 90. Hollywood mourned one of its last great entertainers. Tributes poured in from everywhere. Jerry Seinfeld called him irreplaceable, and Bob Newhart said losing him felt like losing a part of his own life. Rickles' death marked not just the end of a man, but the close of an era, the golden age of comedy where timing, honesty, and courage mattered most. Unlike Johnny Carson, whose private life remained a mystery, Rickles left the world with openness and warmth. Life in Hollywood is often painted as glamorous. Red carpets, flashing cameras, and smiling faces. But Don Rickles knew better. Behind the lights was loneliness, competition, and a constant fear of being forgotten. For him, the stage was both a blessing and a burden. Every laugh was a victory, but every quiet moment reminded him of the cost of fame. He often said that comedians live in a strange world. People expect them to be happy all the time, but laughter can't heal every wound. As he grew older, he started to see how many of his friends and colleagues had faded away once their fame dimmed. The entertainment business that once celebrated them now ignored their calls. Rickles watched many of his peers die quietly, remembered only by old reruns. He didn't want to become one of them. He kept performing, sometimes against his doctor's advice, because the stage gave him life. Yet when he looked back on his friendship with Johnny Carson, he realized that fame had stolen something precious: real human connection. In one interview, he said, "Johnny was a genius, but he was a lonely man. We were two lonely men who made people laugh together." That single sentence revealed more than decades of shows ever could. It showed the truth. Both men were entertainers, hiding pain behind smiles. Even though Don Rickles admired Johnny Carson deeply, their relationship had layers of quiet rivalry. Carson ruled late-night television like a king. Every guest wanted his approval. Every comedian wanted a seat on his couch. Rickles was one of the few who didn't just want to sit there. He wanted to shake things up. His unpredictable energy made the show exciting, but it also made Carson uneasy at times. There were nights when Rickles went too far with his jokes, teasing Carson about his divorces or personal habits, and the tension was visible. Yet Carson never banned him. Why? Because he knew Rickles brought something no one else could: truth. Rickles' comedy had a way of exposing what everyone else was afraid to say. He teased Carson not just for laughs, but to remind him that even kings of television were human. Still, off camera, Carson's pride kept him distant. He preferred control, order, and silence. Rickles thrived on noise, chaos, and connection. They were opposites. One was ice, the other fire. Over time, that difference created invisible walls between them. In private moments, Rickles admitted that he sometimes felt like a guest in a world where Carson was the emperor. He respected him, even loved him in a professional sense, but he also envied him. Yet, when Carson died in 2005, Rickles mourned him like a brother. He told reporters, "Johnny was the best there ever was. I wish I had known him better." That final wish summed up decades of unspoken emotion. Don Rickles often said that making people laugh was more than a job. It was a way of life. But as he aged, he started to think about what laughter really meant. Was it only entertainment, or was it a kind of healing? In his final years, he often talked about how comedy had changed. When he began, humor was bold, risky, and spontaneous. By the 2000s, the world had become more sensitive, and comedians had to walk carefully to avoid offense. Rickles never changed his style. He said, "If I can't make fun of everyone, then I can't make fun at all." But deep inside, he understood that times were different. He didn't blame the new generation. He simply felt that his kind of comedy belonged to another era, one where laughter came from acceptance, not division. When asked how he wanted to be remembered, he didn't talk about fame or money. He said, "I want people to remember that I made them laugh and that I meant no harm. Every insult I gave was a form of love." That line revealed the true Don Rickles, a man who hid his kindness under layers of jokes. His humor was never about cruelty. It was about connection. He believed that by laughing together, people could forget their differences, even for a moment. And maybe that was his greatest message to the world. In his final years, Don Rickles slowed down physically but not mentally. He continued doing interviews, appearing on shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live and Late Show with David Letterman, where younger hosts treated him like royalty. Even in a wheelchair, his timing was perfect. Every joke came with that same spark that made him famous decades ago. He spoke openly about mortality, saying, "At my age, I wake up and check the paper to see if I'm still here." It was classic Rickles, turning fear into laughter. Yet behind that humor was acceptance. He knew his time was coming and made peace with it. Friends who visited him said he remained kind, alert, and always funny. He never let sadness take over. What amazed many was his lack of bitterness. Despite the ups and downs of fame, the losses, and the loneliness, he remained grateful. When asked about Johnny Carson again in his last interviews, he said, "Johnny was Johnny. He did what he had to do. I did what I had to do. In the end, we both made people happy." It was a statement of closure, simple, mature, and full of grace. Rickles spent his last days surrounded by family and loved ones, still joking until his final moments. His wife, Barbara, who stood by him for more than 50 years, later said, "He never stopped being